Being very entitled and controlling, narcissists have no difficulty stepping all over your personal boundaries. So that's why I put together an extensive video class called This Is Me. It has 25 videos, written documents, guided questions. I'm going to teach you how to have healthy boundaries. There's a link below, and I hope you'll find it to be quite therapeutic. We can say a couple of things about people who are trapped inside their own narcissistic patterns with a great deal of certainty. And that is, first, they fall back very commonly and very easily into unhealthy patterns. They have lots of them. And then second, we can say that they cannot and they will not interpret those patterns honestly. They can't be honest with themselves about who they are, which is why then they exasperate you by perpetuating all of the many elements of their personality that just are not helpful. Now, when I say that they have many bad habits and many negative patterns, first of all, they tend not to even admit that their patterns are as bad as you might think they are, and they just can't take responsibility for themselves. Or if they do acknowledge that there is something that might have been defective or wrong with them, inevitably it's someone else's fault, and they'll just kind of skate off by saying, well, none of this would have happened inside of me if it weren't for key people in my life, whether it's people in my past or you right now. I just live with a bunch of idiots. Or then when all of that happens, another of the problems that tends to emerge is that you can inevitably fall into the unhelpful response of trying to convince them that they need to be honest with themselves. Keep in mind that narcissists hide behind the veneer of a false self, emphasis on the word false. They can't manage the truth about who they are. And when you ask them, come on, just be honest about what's going on, they're not going to do it. They'll say, well, honestly, you're an idiot. And that's about as far as they can go. Now, one of the things that I want you to be able to do is to at least you can be the one that says, well, I can make honest interpretations with respect to what's going on when these bad habits come in my direction. And the more you have awareness and insight about what truly drives them, then the less you're going to get suckered into all of the negative and maladaptive responses you can have towards them. Knowledge is power, and your awareness is going to be your friend. And so I want to talk with you about a half a dozen or so of the most common bad patterns or the worst habits that these individuals have. And then let's see if we can put a true interpretation on what's really going on. Now, the first bad habit or worst pattern that they have is that most of you know that they can have very easy and reflexive reactions of anger. It doesn't take much to trigger them. And they can come through in their anger in a very harsh and rageful kind of way. Sometimes they can just be chronically argumentative. Sometimes they can just seethe with grudges or contempt toward other individuals. But the anger is just right there underneath the surface. And of course, what they're going to do is they're going to say, well, it's all because of you. When the narcissist has this reflexive, almost instantaneous type of anger, here's the interpretation we can go with. First, that what that person is saying is, I'm carrying decades of unresolved pain inside my soul. That's what's really going on when they have such anger. Because you can look at some of the events that cause them to be angry, and it's like it doesn't warrant as much venom as you're pouring out on it. They may be thinking, are you going to dismiss me? Or do you think I'm a nobody? Or are you rejecting me right now? That can't possibly be. And I'm hoping that as they come toward you with the anger and all of the implications that go along with it, you can ask, where is this coming from? And is all of their anger really about you? And I'm hoping that interpretation that says, no, it's about the pain that they've been carrying for decades that they're not coming to terms with. That's how we're going to interpret that. Now, there's another extremely common pattern that they can get into, and I'm sure you've experienced this one, and that is they can come towards you with automatic defensiveness. It's not like it just kind of builds up slowly. But let's suppose you just say something very simple that is maybe of a different nature. I was going to say disagreeable, but just different nature. Or you want them to notice something that could be done in a better kind of way. They'll go into rationalization or projection or displacement, or they'll just clam up and throw their walls up. What does that say? How are we going to interpret their automatic defensiveness? Basically, the interpretation we can say is that narcissist is more or less implying, I have learned that there's no one trustworthy in my world, and that includes you. And again, we can ask, well, where did that come from? And in their deep history, they learned that openness and vulnerability was going to get them in trouble. It was going to cause a loss of stature. And so they're bringing that presumption to you when in fact it may have nothing to do with you, but their defensiveness is interpreted as their incapacity for trust. Now, another of their patterns that can drive you nuts, and this can be very common over dinner, in family gatherings, or you just don't say certain things about this person. Narcissists can hold unbending opinions. And you know that there are some times when it's like, oh, I just hope they don't get onto this topic of theirs that they just can't let go of. Narcissists have to be right. And then your different opinion means that you're against them. So how are we going to interpret that? Well, when narcissists just cling to their opinions and take no input, what my interpretation is going to be is empathy doesn't work. They've decided that even though there's a great deal of diversity out there in the world and many people have many different reasons for thinking and feeling as they do, it's like, I don't want to learn about you. I don't want to learn about who you are and what your backstory is or what your influences have been. Trying to understand you takes up too much psychological energy. And so, and then on top of it, if I show understanding toward you, it diminishes my sense of power. And I've got to have power. So that's why I have to be right. I'd rather be right than loving or connected. I need to have that. And so their unbending opinions is their way of saying, I just can't and I won't empathize. I don't have any priority for that. Now, another of their most common patterns, and again, this is one I'm sure you've experienced many times over, is they can be hypercritical. Now, we can all have our moments where we say, that doesn't work for me, I don't care for this. But when I'm talking about the narcissists, they're masters at finding many reasons to reject other individuals or declare other people as defective. What's wrong with you? Well, where do I start? That's how they think. How are we going to interpret their chronic criticism? Well, my interpretation is it's their way of saying, I'm totally confused by complexity. It's too challenging. And in their sense of ineptitude, they go straight into what I call psychological laziness. I don't want to have to think. I don't have to work at trying to understand individuals. It's just a whole lot easier to criticize and dismiss other people, problem solved, and I'm on my way. Now, another of their most common patterns is their tendency to ignore you and go into shutdown mode. Sometimes when narcissists feel that they're most exasperated, they can just go incommunicado for a long period of time. Actually, there's no such thing as no communication. Everything communicates something. But they can give you the silent treatment. They can emotionally or physically withdraw. They can keep secrets and they can become evasive. What interpretation are we going to put on their ignoring you and then shutting down? Well, my interpretation is it's their way of saying your independence threatens me. So when you just say, I just want to be me and I want to have the thoughts and feelings and priorities, it's like, I can't deal with that. And so when you're free, it's your way of saying, I don't want to be controlled by you. And it's like, well, I don't know what to do when you're a free person. And you could say, well, flow with me. How about that? They can't do that. When they ignore you, it's their way of saying, I feel defeated, but at least if I can try to make you squirm, then maybe somehow that tactic will make you come over to my side. Not a very good strategy. And then another of their most common patterns is that they can try to smear your character, and very often they'll do it sometimes straight to your face, but often they'll bring other parties in and even do it behind your back. And they may do it through triangulation, and by triangulation they work other people against you and for them. They can go into negative PR against you. They can gossip about you or have insults about you behind your back. How are we going to interpret that? And now this is one that once you see it, it's like, of course, it makes so much sense. The interpretation that I put on their smear campaign toward you is they're thinking, if I can make you look bad, then it allows me to control the narrative about myself. You see, if I can let everybody else know how miserable you are, then I can be the victim. And, victims always get sympathy, so I win. And so that's how they go about that. Now, when we say that our narcissists can't be honest with themselves about these patterns that I'm talking about, you can see that their lack of honesty is tied directly to their need for a scapegoat. It's tied directly to their invalidation of people who are onto them. It's tied directly to their keeping of secrets. It's tied directly to them being heavily invested in image crafting. It's tied directly to them talking over you whenever you have an idea to share. It's tied directly to them taking preemptive pot shots against you. It's tied directly to them lying so easily. It's tied directly to them vying for the superior position. It's tied directly to them holding other individuals in contempt. It's tied directly to their astonishing lack of reasoning. And it's tied directly to their rejecting you over minutia. They have so much chaos on the inside, and they cannot even acknowledge the fact that they have it, and they certainly won't interpret it correctly. So your task, even though they can't handle the truth, is to understand the truth about what you're dealing with. And I'm hoping that in your mind you can think to that narcissist, I know that you need your alternate reality, but I don't. And if you can't come to terms with your perpetual patterns that are bringing disrupted elements to our relationship, I'm going to be honest about it, and we're going to have a limited relationship at best. Now, I hope this gives you some good clarity about what you might be dealing with. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do so, and we'll keep more videos coming towards you. I appreciate you allowing me to be on your journey, and I hope you find this to be quite enlightening for you. Now, many times when you're up against something like this, you could use some therapy. You know that I've been sponsored for years by the people at BetterHelp.com. There's a link below the video here that would take you directly to their website. Online therapy is proven to be quite successful, and many people have used the service. It can be so helpful for somebody to say, I want to know you, and let's be honest about what we're dealing with so that you can interpret things right and learn how to have your most appropriate response to their lack of wisdom. So as the need is there, please go beneath the link or beneath the video and go through the link and get the help that you need. Now, in addition, I've also put together online classes. This is my way of drawing upon my 40 years of therapy experience, and each of the video classes has at least 25 teaching videos with handouts per video, guided questions that are meant to have a very therapeutic intent. And so we have anger games. We have This Is Me about establishing your boundaries, free to be, finding yourself despite their control, ready, set, connect about having healthy connections. And so there are links below that would take you to those. Also on my website, we have access to my webinars, which are 90-minute presentations with PowerPoint presentations that have proven to be quite popular, along with articles, my books. So we have plenty of resources for you. Okay, narcissists have very predictable patterns, and they have an unwillingness to interpret those patterns honestly. And so that leaves you with the task of knowing, well, I know how to interpret who they are. And as I see them for what they are, and as I recognize they choose not to make the adjustments, then sure enough, I am going to move forward with my own internal truth intact. And I'm going to live according to what I know is the wisest and best way to engage with relationships. And if they're not able to work with me on that, then so be it. In the process, I'm hoping it can help you become more and more committed to your own personal steadiness, because I'm so hopeful that you can ultimately, in the end, have your sense of peace.